Hello and welcome to week 4 in Statistics for Psychology. And here we're getting into one of our first pieces of methodology, and that is sampling. Now it comes up now, the research method of sampling comes up now because as we're going to see, the size and quality of our sample deeply affects our statistics and what we can say regarding those statistics. Now, we've had a discussion already about the fact that when we are studying human behavior, we are trying to say something about a target population. So you may be interested in working with children, so the research that you do, you want to know, what does this say about all children? Or what does it say about all children with autism? Or maybe I'm looking at racial issues, so I might say, what does this topic have to do with people's perceptions of race in Maine? That might be my target population. I want to understand that group of people. Now, when we make that goal to say something about a population, we know methodologically that we can't survey everybody. I can't capture that whole population. So I have to take a sample, meaning within the confines of my time, finances, and practicalities, I have to take a piece of that entire population, study that piece in a way that I can maybe say something about the whole population. So that is the purpose of sampling. Now, I introduced in this chapter also the notion of probability, because when we are sampling, one of the concepts that comes up is if I'm going to have an equitable representative sample of the population that I'm trying to study, then there probably should be equal probability that any one of those members of that population would be part of my study. This is difficult to do, definitely difficult. But probability comes in terms of determining the quality of that assignment and the quality of that research and that sample. Different sampling methods use different kinds of probability of being part of the sample. So the different methods will have different measures of probability. So in the discussion, I'm asking you to think about things that you do in your life that engage probability. Okay, and I'm gonna use a weakness of mine. For years, I would drive very fast. Not super fast, but I was always over the speed limit. Now, at any given moment, going over the speed limit, my perception was there was a relatively low probability of me getting caught and getting a ticket because I traveled so much and I was speeding so much on so many different occasions that every once in a while, maybe every 50 times, maybe even 100 times I went out is when I got a ticket. So there was a 1 in 100 chance at any given point I'm going to actually get a ticket for that. And that outweighed, during that period of my life, that outweighed the potential consequences of speeding. Now, my behavior would have been dramatically different if there was, let's say, a 50% chance that I was going to get caught. So if there's a 50% chance, that's a coin flip. That's very high probability. What if it's 75%? What if it's 100%? What if something's built into my car? As soon as I start speeding, it sends a signal to my bank and takes $65 out, or whatever, $150 out. I'd be very conscientious of how fast I was driving. So that's an example of how I would play the odds in something. So I want you to discuss, how do you play the odds in your life? An example of that, maybe more than one example. The quiz, I'm asking you to put your head around different methodologies of sampling, with the 3 that I picked were stratified random, cluster sampling, and convenient sampling. So getting to know what those are. And then I want you to put your researcher hat on, and I want you to say, how would I use that particular method to study the factors that I point out in these 3 different examples? So in the first one, you want to know how adults in your country feel about the issue of immigration. So the population is adults in this country. That's a huge, huge, huge population. Okay? You want to sample that. And I'm asking you to use a stratified sampling. So you look up what stratified means, and you can select. There's lots of ways you can stratify the adult population in the United States. I'll just say that. There's lots of different. Pick one. Pick one way in which you can stratify, categorize different types of people in the adult population and apply a method. Write out how you would do that. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about anything. Let's say I want to sample 10,000 people. This is how I'm going to stratify them to make sure I cover all my bases in that particular measure of how we organize people. Okay. I'll give you an example of that. One of them would be by gender. And I would want to make sure that I have representations of gender in each one of there. Don't use gender. Use one of the many others, but males, females, trans, non-binary, and all that stuff. And how would I actually do that? How would I make sure that I have representative populations in each one of those? Now, I've stolen one from you. I've stolen gender as a way of stratifying the entire adult population. Pick another one for this quiz. The second one is you want to know about how anxious college seniors are about their job prospects. This one, I want you to cluster different method of sampling. So, and we're talking about college students, seniors in colleges. So how would you cluster that to answer the question about all seniors in all colleges? And finally, I want you to learn about how people remember information based on their mood, and you're going to use a convenience sampling. Now, I haven't really, the implication here is how people remember. It's like everyone, but you're using a convenience sample. So I want you to describe how you would actually do that. I want you to think for each one of these, I want you to think about specifically your method. How would you actually get this sample? How would you get the names, let's say, for this sample? How would you do that? So be creative, be specific, as if you really had to do this. Don't tell me what you would get. Tell me how you would get it. That's what I'm going to be looking for in that particular quiz. The Chapter 3 assignment is very straightforward. There's a method within Excel to generate random numbers. Now, one of the ways in which you can randomly assign or randomly sample from a large group is to take a large group, number those individuals 1 to whatever, and then have Excel produce a number of random numbers based on your sample. So I take 2,000 people and I want a sample that's 200 people big. So I put into Excel from the numbers from 1 to 2,000, give me 200 random numbers in that. And it'll list those numbers, and then I go on to my list of everybody, and I pick the 5th person, the 27th person, the 1,280th person. I pick, that I go through those random numbers until I get my 200 sample. At any given point, those numbers, when Excel goes in there and it takes 200 of those things, at any given point, every one of those people has the likelihood of being an equal likelihood of being part of that sample. So that's an example of random sampling. We used number generation tools like the one in Excel. So I'm having you demonstrate that with a set of numbers that I put in the assignment, and that will be your assignment for this week. So we have the discussion on probability. We have the 3 methodology questions on how to reach a sample using 3 different sampling methods that I give to you. And then we have Excel giving us a set of random numbers. Yet again, another example of how we might create a sample. So there we are for this week. I look forward to the discussion. It's always fun to see how people are engaged in sort of probabilities and whatnot. And that can get a little crazy sometimes. So I'm looking forward to that. So have a great week, and I will see you in the discussions. Take care.